Hello once again, I am Jasper J. Tinog and welcome you all to the Module 2, starting of course with Lesson 1. Our Lesson 1 will talk about performance assessment. Along with the discussion with my group mates, we will encounter the principles, characteristics, and others about performance assessment or the what and why of performance assessment. And also, since we're done with traditional and authentic assessment, we can determine its differences and connections or relations. Alright, I know you're thinking or wondering now, what is the performance assessment and what might its difference from authentic assessment? But before we go further, let's see first our, of course, objectives. At the end of the lessons, the students will be able to discuss the meaning and nature of performance assessment. S. Identify learning competencies for process-based and product-based assessment. And A. Realize the importance of performance assessment in the classroom. Alright, maybe you're wondering now or recalling the activities you've done from your experiences inside the classroom. And let's check if you're right. Okay, performance assessment is an assessment in which students are asked to demonstrate their knowledge, understanding, and proficiency with tangible performance or products as evidence of learning. So as we know, it's different from the traditional where more on pencil and paper test or only involved closed-ended questions as well as response. So you might be wondering that performance assessment is similar to the authentic assessment. Actually, yes, they are quite similar, but there's a thin line between them. Performance assessment consists of open-ended questions as well as response. A response that to be examined by a teacher. In performance assessment, products are tangible and performances being demonstrated. Performance assessment is an authentic assessment. Now, what it makes authentic or authentic to what? To determine whether the performance assessment is authentic, we must ask those and consider the points which will justify the authenticity, which are task complexity, stimuli, locus of control, motivation, spontaneity, resources, criteria, standard, and consequences. In performance assessment, the teacher needs to make that determination. In labeling an assessment as authentic, the assessor must specify in what respect the assessment is authentic. Now, performance assessment answers the question, how well can you use what you know? Now, when it comes to authentic assessment, it refers to the context in which the response is performed. It is about the process or answers the question how you do it. While performance assessment is about the kind of student's response to be examined or answers the question how well you do it or did the performance met the standard. In general, performance assessment talks about demonstration of the desired behavior and measures the student's ability. Performance assessment will help teachers gauge the level of students' understanding and can or should identify and evaluate the students' learning or the output, or how will the students understand and apply the particular skill. So that would be all about the meaning and nature of performance assessment. And for your assessment, if you've really understood what is performance assessment, I want you to list at least 5 performance assessment. Thank you, and let's proceed to the purpose of performance assessment, which will be discussed by Giselle Bennett. Thank you.
So, when you hear the word performance task, what comes into your mind? Okay, so you may say a performance task is any learning activity or assessment that asks students to perform to demonstrate their knowledge, understanding, and proficiency. Yes, that's correct. So, performance task yields a tangible product and or performance that serve
Good day, everyone! At this point of time, we will be talking about the 7 general characteristics of performance tasks. The first characteristic is performance tasks call for the application of knowledge and skills, not just recall or recognition. The learner must actually use their learning to perform. Performance tasks are assessments that require individuals to demonstrate their knowledge and skills by completing a task or solving a problem. So unlike in traditional assessments that focus on recall or recognition of information, performance tasks require the application of knowledge and skills in a real-world context. Let's take this for example. In a traditional assessment, it might ask a student to define a concept or let the student answer multiple choice questions about a certain topic. So, in contrast, a performance task might ask a student to analyze the data set, write an essay, arguing a point of view, or create a project that demonstrates their understanding of a complex concept. So the key difference between these two types of assessments is that performance tasks requires individuals to apply their knowledge and skills to a new situation, while traditional assessments simply test their ability to recall or recognize information. So by focusing on performance tasks, educators can more accurately assess the individual's ability to use their knowledge and skills in real-world contexts, which is a crucial skill for success in today's rapidly changing world. So additionally, performance tasks can help individuals to develop their critical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills, which are essential for success in a wide range of careers and academic pursuits. The second characteristic is performance tasks are open-ended and typically do not yield a single correct answer. So unlike selected or brief constructed response, items that seek a right answer, performance tasks are open-ended. Thus, there can be different responses to the task that still meet success criteria. So performance tasks are open-ended assessments that are designed to allow individuals to apply their knowledge and skills in a variety of ways. Unlike traditional assessments that have a single correct answer, performance tasks are designed to elicit a range of responses and solutions reflecting the complexity of real-world problems. Because performance tasks are open-ended, they can be designed to accommodate a range of skill levels and learning styles. For example, a performance task might ask students to create a project that demonstrates their understanding of a complex concept, allowing them to choose from a range of media such as video, podcast, or presentation, or a written report. So the open-ended nature of performance tasks also allow individuals to demonstrate their creativity, their critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. By providing individuals with the freedom to explore different solutions, performance tasks encourage individuals to think outside the box and to develop their own unique perspective on a problem. The third characteristic is performance tasks establish novel and authentic contexts for performance. These tasks present realistic conditions and constraints for students to navigate. Performance tasks are designed to establish novel and authentic contexts for individuals to demonstrate their knowledge and skills. Unlike traditional assessment that often rely on contrived or artificial scenarios, performance tasks are designed to simulate real-world situations and challenges that individuals are likely to encounter in their academic or professional careers. For example, a performance task in a science class might ask students to design and conduct an experiment that addresses a real-world problem such as water pollution or climate change. This task establishes an authentic context for performance because it requires students to apply scientific principles to a real-world problem, just as scientists do in their research. Similarly, a performance task in a business class might ask students to develop a marketing campaign for a new product or complete with market research, branding, and advertising materials. This task establishes an authentic context of performance because it requires students to use their knowledge and skills in a way that mirrors the challenges faced by real-world marketing professionals. By establishing these novel and authentic contexts for performance, performance tasks encourage individuals to develop a deeper understanding of the material and to apply their knowledge and skills in a meaningful way. This approach to assessment is more engaging and motivating for individuals as it allows them to see the relevance and applicability of what they are learning to their lives and future careers. The fourth characteristic is performance tasks provide evidence of understanding via transfer. Understanding is revealed when students can transfer their learning to a new and messy situations. Performance tasks provide evidence of understanding via transfer by requiring individuals to apply their knowledge and skills in new and unfamiliar situations. Transfer is the ability to apply what has been learned in one situation to new situations or problems, and it is a key indicator of deep understanding. In performance tasks, individuals are typically asked to solve complex problems or complete real-world tasks that require them to transfer their knowledge and skills to new contexts. For example, a performance task in a math class might ask students to design a budget for a fictional family, requiring them to use their knowledge of budgeting, arithmetic, and problem solving to create a realistic and effective budget. By requiring individuals to transfer their knowledge and skills to new situations, performance tasks provide evidence of deep understanding. Individuals who can successfully transfer their knowledge and skills to new contexts have a more robust and flexible understanding of the material and are better equipped to apply what they have learned in a wide range of situations. The fifth characteristic is performance tasks are multifaceted. Unlike traditional test items that are typically assess a single skill or fact, performance tasks are more complex. They involve multiple steps and thus can be used to assess several standards or outcomes. Performance tasks are multifaceted assessments that require individuals to demonstrate a range of knowledge and skills in order to complete a complex task or solve a real-world problem. Unlike traditional assessments that often focus on a single skill or concept, performance tasks require individuals to integrate and apply multiple skills and concepts simultaneously. For example, a performance task in a social studies class might ask students to analyze a complex historical event, requiring them to use their knowledge of history, critical thinking, research, and writing skills to develop a comprehensive understanding of the event and its significance. Similarly, a performance task in a science class might ask students to design and conduct an experiment, requiring them to use their knowledge of scientific principles, research methods, data analysis, and problem-solving skills to complete the task successfully. Because performance tasks are multifaceted, they provide a more comprehensive and nuanced assessment of an individual's knowledge and skills. So by requiring individuals to integrate and apply multiple skills and concepts, performance tasks provide a more accurate and meaningful picture of an individual's abilities and potential. The sixth characteristic is performance tasks can integrate two or more subjects as well as 21st century skills. While performance tasks can certainly be content-specific, example given mathematics, science, and social studies, they also provide a vehicle for integrating two or more subjects and or weaving in 21st century skills. Such tasks encourage students to see meaningful learning as integrated rather than something that occurs in isolated subjects and segments. Performance tasks are flexible and can be designed to integrate two or more subjects as well as 21st century skills. By combining multiple subjects and skills, performance tasks provide individuals with opportunities to develop a more holistic and interdisciplinary understanding of the material. For example, a performance task in an English and history class might ask students to research and write a historical fiction story set in a particular time period. So this task integrates English and history and requires individuals to use research skills, critical thinking, writing skills, and creativity. Similarly, a performance task in a science and math class might ask students to design sustainable energy system for a building. This task integrates science and math and requires individuals to use knowledge and skills related to energy systems, environmental science, data analysis, and problem solving. In addition to integrating multiple subjects, performance tasks can also incorporate 21st century skills such as collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. By requiring individuals to work together, communicate effectively, think creatively, and solve complex problems, performance tasks help individuals to develop the skills they need to succeed in the 21st century. The last characteristic is performances on open-ended tasks are evaluated with established criteria and rubrics. Since these tasks do not yield a single answer, student products and performances should be judged against appropriate criteria aligned to the goals being assessed. Performances on open-ended tasks are evaluated with established criteria and rubrics to ensure that the assessment is objective, consistent, and transparent. Criteria and rubrics provide clear expectations and guidelines for what constitutes high-quality work and allow individuals to understand what is expected of them and how their work will be evaluated. Criteria are the specific elements or aspects of the task that will be evaluated, such as content knowledge, creativity, problem-solving skills, or critical thinking. Rubrics, on the other hand, are scoring guides that provide a clear and detailed description of each criterion and the different levels of performance that correspond to each score. For example, a rubric for a performance task in a science class might include criteria such as accuracy, creativity, experimental design, data analysis, and conclusions. Each criterion would be described in detail along with a range of scores that correspond to different levels of performance. During established criteria and rubrics, to evaluate performances on open-ended tasks helps to ensure that the assessment is fair, consistent, and transparent. It allows individuals to understand what is expected of them and how their work will be evaluated, and provides them with the clear feedback on their strengths and areas for improvement. Thank you so much for listening and answering my assessment. I hope that you have learned something from this. So please listen also to the next reporter, one of my group mates, and I hope that you will learn something from there too. Goodbye.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Joysanas from BSN Math 3, and for today's video, we are going to tackle about process-based performance assessment. So is it possible to explain why the student outputs is as they are through an assessment of the process which they did in order to arrive at the final product? So with that, it is important to assess students' learning not only through their outputs or products, but also the processes which the students underwent in order to arrive at these products or outputs.
Process-based performance assessment. Process-based assessment seeks to gain insights into the underlying cognitive process used by the students rather than focus on tangible responses, products, and performances. So the process performance-based assessment evaluates the actual task performance, and it does not emphasize on the output or product of the activity. So this assessment aims to know what processes a person undergoes when given a task. And also, it concerned with the actual task performance rather than the output or product of the activity. The second one is it provides information on students' learning strategies and thinking process. So it emphasizes on students' ability to perform tasks by producing their own work with their knowledge and skills. And lastly, this type of assessment is usually used as a natural part of teaching, one in which a teacher observes and makes a judgment about the student's demonstration of a skill or competency in creating a product, constructing a response, or making a presentation. So let's move on to the process-based performance assessment. So the information about outcomes is important. So to improve outcomes, we need to know about student experience along the way, and assessment can help us understand which students learn best under what conditions, which such knowledge comes the capacity to improve the whole of their learning. So the learning objectives in process-based assessment are stated directly in observable behaviors of the students. Competencies are defined as groups or clusters of skills needed for a particular task. So the objectives focus on the behaviors which exemplify the best practice for the particular task. Such behavior range from a beginner level up to the level of expert. So we have here some example. So the task is we need to recite a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. The title is The Raven. So the objectives is the activity aims to enable the students to recite a poem entitled The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, specifically to first, recite the poem from memory without referring to notes. So it is important to recite our poem before we recite it to the audience. So the second one is use appropriate hand and body gestures in delivering the piece. Also, it is important to us to use our hand and body gestures to have the relationship to the audiences. So the third one is maintain eye contact with the audience while reciting the poem. So it is important also that we need to eye contact with the audience. So what I've said earlier, it is important to have the relationship between you and the audiences. So the fourth one is we need to create the ambience of the poem through appropriate rising and falling intonation. Before we recite our poem, we need to read it and we need to identify which is the rising and falling intonation before we recite the poem. So the last one is pronounce the words clearly and with proper diction. So we need to pronounce the word clearly so that our audience would understand what would the poem would be and what is the poem talks about. So a competency is said to be more complex when it consists of two or more skills. The following competencies are simple competencies. So the first one is speak with a well-modulated voice. So with this, it means toning the pitch or tone of the voice so that the message is communicated across clearly and well understood by the audience. So the second one is draw a straight line from one point to another point. And lastly, color a leaf with a green crayon. The following competencies are more complex. First, recite a poem with feeling using appropriate voice quality, facial expressions, and hand gestures. The second one is construct an equilateral triangle given three non-collinear points. And lastly, draw and color a leaf with green crayon.
Once again, this is Christine Joy Sanas from BSED Math 3, and thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. Today, I will report about the product-based performance assessment. Product-based assessment is an evaluation approach that focuses on the final product or outcome of a learning experience rather than on a process or activities involved in achieving it. Product-based learning competencies are evidence-based. The teacher needs tangible evidence that the student has achieved a certain level of competence based on submitted products and projects. In an educational setting, product-based assessment involves assessing students' understandings, skills, and knowledge by examining their completed assignments, projects, or other forms of work. So that's why it's called product-based. It requires the student to produce a tangible evidence, just like their research paper or their assignments, project that is being said. Now, product-based performance assessment uses rubric to evaluate students' performance or proficiency in any given task as it relates to a final product or learning outcome. Thus, rubrics can provide information regarding the degree to which the student has achieved the intended learning outcome based on a specific criteria that serves as the framework for evaluation. Product-based learning competencies target at least 3 levels. First is level 1, the novice or beginner level. Level 2, skilled level. Level 3, expert level. Level 1, novice or beginner level, answers the questions: does the finished product or project illustrate the minimum expected parts of functions? Level 2, or skilled level, does the finished product or project contain additional parts or functions on top of the minimum requirements which tend to enhance the final output? Now, in level 3, the expert level, does the finished product or project contain the basic parts and functions, have additional features on top of the minimum, and is aesthetically pleasing? Now, let's take a look to the example. The desired product is a presentation of a cubic prism made out of cardboard on elementary geometry class. Now, its learning competencies, when we put the 3 level, the final product submitted by the student must first possess the correct dimension, 5 by 5 by 5, that's level 1. Now, be sturdy, made up of durable cardboard and properly fastened together, is a skill specification which is in level 2. Now, be pleasing to observe and preferable properly colored for aesthetic purposes in an expert level. Now, if the student passing their final product or their final output about the cubic prism, the representation about cubic prism made up of cardboard on their elementary geometry class, it means that the students really understand what was the teachers directed or what was the teachers instruct to them. And also, the product assessment can also be used for assessing output of short-term tasks. For example, the desired output consists of the output in a typing class. So their learning competencies or the final typing outputs of the student must first possess no more than 5 words in spelling. That is the level 1, which is the minimum specification. Now, level 2, possessing no more than 5 errors in spelling while observing proper format based on the document to be written is a skill specification, which is in level 2. Now, in level 3, possesses no more than 5 errors in spelling and has the proper format and is readable and presentable, is the expert level. So if the students have this learning competency, meaning they are in level 3, which is the expert level. In summary, product-based learning competencies can also be described in terms of 3 levels: novice, skilled, and the expert, which each level builds on the previous one, with learner progressively developing more complex skills and knowledge as they engage in the product-based learning process. So that's all about the product-based learning assessment.
Hi, my name is General Sel Mangadingan and I'm here to report about the principles of performance assessment. So, what is the principle of performance assessment? So the principles of performance assessments are important considerations when designing and implementing performance assessments that are accurately measure an individual or organization's ability to meet predetermined standard, goals, and objectives. So we have 7 principles of performance assessment. Number 1 is generalizability. So is there a high likelihood the student's performance on a task will generalize to comparable tasks? So, generalizability is that this principle is concerned with the transferability of skills or knowledge acquired through the task being assessed. So, meaning it asks whether the task is representative of the skills or the knowledge that students will need to apply in the future. So, a task that measures only specific and narrow skills may not be generalizable to other situations, whereas a task that requires a more complex and integrated set of skills is more likely to be generalizable. Number 2 is authenticity. So, is the task similar to what students might encounter in the real world as opposed to encounter only in school? So, when we say authenticity, this principle is concerned with the extent to which the task reflects real-world situations or problems that students might encounter outside of the classroom. So authenticity is important because it helps students to motivate students and make the assessment more relevant and meaningful to them. So the tasks that are highly artificial or contrived may not be authentic and may not accurately reflect students' abilities. So the next one is multiple FOSI. So, does a task measures multiple instructional outcomes instead of only one? So, when we say multiple FOSI, so this principle is concerned with the comprehensiveness of the assessment. So, it asks whether the task measures multiple instructional outcomes or just one. So, a task that measures multiple outcomes is more likely to provide a well-rounded and comprehensive picture of students' abilities than a task that measures only one outcome. The next one would be teachability. So, is the task that one student can become more proficient in as a consequences of a teacher's instructional efforts? So, when we say teachability, so this principle is concerned with whether the task is responsive to the instruction. So, it asks whether the task is something that students can learn to do better as a result of teacher instructions and the support. So, a task that is too difficult or too easy may not be responsive to instruction. So, whereas a task that is appropriately challenging and well-designed is more likely to be responsive to the instruction. So the fifth one is the fairness. So is the task fair to all students? That is, does the task avoid bias based on such personal characteristics as students, gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status? So when we say fairness, this principle is concerned with whether the task is fair to all students regardless of their personal characteristics. So it asks whether the task is biased in any way, such as by gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. So a fair task is one that measures what is intended to measure and does not disadvantage any group of students. The next one would be feasibility. So, is the task realistically implementable in relation to its cost, space, time, and equipment requirements? So, when we say feasibility, this principle is concerned with the practicality of implementing task. So, it asks whether the task is realistic and feasible to implement in terms of its cost, space, time, and equipment requirements. So, a task that is too costly or requires too much equipment may not be feasible to implement. The last one is scorability. So, is the task likely to elicit students' responses that can be reliably and accurately evaluated? So, when we say scorability, this principle is concerned with whether the task can be scored reliably and accurately. So, it asks whether the task elicits responses that can be evaluated consistently and objectively. So, a task that is too subjective or open to interpretation may not be easily scored. So, whereas a task that is well-defined and well-structured is more likely to be easily scored. Now, it's time for activity. Choose the best idea as an example. So, it's time to think, everyone. So, give me some examples of your experience in the classroom wherein you notice that these principles of performance assessment are being applied in the classroom. It's your time now to answer.